Stop begging. It may sound harsh at first, but if you look calmly, you'll see how many times you've asked, with small gestures and hidden anxiety, for the world to confirm that you exist. An icon that lights up, a double check that becomes the traffic light of your mood, a reaction that soothes for a minute the fear of going unnoticed. Today we will enter, without whip and without excuses, into the silent habit of begging for attention, not to blame you, but to return to you the helm you should never have handed over. The Stoics called it the hegemonikon, the inner rulership. If you offer it to every notification, your peace rests in the hands of signals you cannot control. And when peace depends on what you do not govern, your life becomes an auction. Think of any ordinary day. You wake up and before looking at the sky, you look at the screen. You seek quick proof that you are remembered, desired, needed. If it arrives, you breathe. If it delays, you invent stories. Epictetus warned that we are not disturbed by things, but by the opinions we have about things. What burns you is not the silence of the other, but the interpretation with which you fill it. Where you say, "They're ignoring me," perhaps there is only busyness, time zone distance, fatigue. The mind, when hungry for approval, makes storms out of dust. That is why today we will lower the volume of the story and raise the weight of the facts. We are not trying to turn you into stone. The purpose is to recover proportion, to be firm without becoming hard, close without exhibiting yourself, present without the need for spotlights. Marcus Aurelius wrote at night to remind himself that a good life does not need spectators, it needs work. If everything you do seeks a gaze, you are working for an unstable audience. If you do it for virtue, even the shadow is a fertile place. Applause is pleasant, but it cannot be your north. The north is your agreement with reason. Begging for attention has an invisible cost. You spend your attention in vigilance. You spend your rest waiting for answers. You spend your dignity accepting conditions you would never accept sober. Seneca wrote that the one who does not know to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. If your port is being seen, you will never arrive, because the horizon moves with every thumb. If your port is living with virtue, even the contrary wind will train you. You will learn to turn waiting into a classroom and solitude into a workshop. This episode is a lamplit in a serene room. I propose that you treat yourself with firmness and tenderness. Firmness to name without detours what you do when you fear going unnoticed. Tenderness to understand why you got there and to offer yourself dignified exits. If you judge yourself harshly, you hide. If you apologize for everything, you repeat. We will seek the middle point, truth without the whip, compassion without theater. Philosophy works if it becomes practice. There will be signals that will portray you. Where you recognize yourself, breathe. Do not rush to erase traces or to publish new ones. Write one line of purpose for the day and return to your task. Progress, Epictetus would say, is not announced, it is exercised. Changing your relationship with other people's attention does not require a dramatic revolution, but 1,000 small choices. A pause before checking, a clear question instead of assuming, a calm no when your soul screams no. We will also talk about exhibition that looks like communication, but is hunger. Sharing can be celebration, but when it becomes a necessity, it ceases to be a bridge and becomes begging. Ask yourself, if no one could react, would you still share it? If the answer is yes, celebrate. If it is no, protect your inner citadel. The best defense is to be, Marcus Aurelius noted. The citadel is not displayed in shop windows, it is inhabited. Do not forget the body. The need for attention tightens the jaw, speeds the pulse, closes the throat. Drop your shoulders, loosen your tongue, lengthen your exhalation. Walk slowly to the window, look at the sky without asking it for a show. These small physical keys return government to the mind. When the body drops a tone, the head understands that there is no emergency. With that margin, you decide better. We are not going to fight with networks or demonize conversation. We are going to order hierarchies, your life first, then the signals. Your purpose first, then the echo. Your conscience first, then the stages. If at the end of this episode you feel less hungry for confirmation and more pleasure in your own company, we will have done something good. Not because you renounce the world, but because you return to it in peace. Let's begin with honesty. You are not broken. You are distracted. You are not destined to beg. You got used to it. It can be unlearned. Today, we will walk through 10 signals so that you recognize where you hand over your helm and how to recover it. There are no promises of immediate applause. There is the promise of root. If you stay, do not look for magic. Look for method. And when you feel the impulse to check if they have already responded, remember that your time is worth more than a flash. Breathe, return to yourself, and continue. Here begins the return. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by leaving in the comments, "From today, I will not beg for attention." That phrase will be your reminder that you were not born to beg for looks, nor to live depending on an icon on the screen. You are here to recover your dignity, to stop handing over your peace to the rush of others, and to inhabit your life with inner strength. This is the moment to prove to yourself that you do not need to ask for what you already have inside: courage, clarity, and presence. Without further preamble, let's begin. First Stoic lesson. Your peace depends on an icon on a screen. When your mood rises or falls, depending on a blue light, a double check, or a typing, you are not loving, you are obeying. That reflection steals your day without making noise and turns your attention into a guard at a door that leads nowhere. Epictetus would say that you have confused what depends on you with what does not. It does not depend on you, the other's speed, their availability, or their mood. It depends on you, the clarity of your message, your courtesy, your consistency, and your decision not to mortgage your peace to a digital traffic light. There is something deeper than a confirmation, your ability to choose where you place your focus while you wait. Look at the steps of the trap. First comes vigilance. You open the conversation just in case. Then imagination. You invent stories to fill the silence. Then the reaction. Anxiety, anger, dramatics. Nothing changed outside. Everything burns inside. We are not disturbed by things, but by the opinion we have about them. Changing your opinion is not self-deception. It is hygiene of judgment. The delay may be due to 1,000 innocent reasons. Your task is not to guess, but to hold your center in what you control. Your schedule, your body, your choice not to look again. Practice a ritual. Write with precision, send and let go. Write only what is necessary, without adornments that look like begging. Send and do not stand at the door waiting for applause. Let go. Decide in advance how much time you will dedicate to something else. Marcus Aurelius repeated to act as befits a rational being. Reason does not peck at the ice of the phone every 2 minutes. Reason does its work and returns when it should. When you check, do it once, not 20 times. Each extra round weakens your rule and strengthens the habit that chains you. Take care of the body when the icon does not appear. Observe your jaw, your shoulders, your breathing. Drop your shoulders, loosen your tongue, lengthen your exhalation. Walk for 5 minutes, open a window, drink water. You are not running away. You are educating. The calm body lends arguments to the mind. The device's alarm does not have to become the chest's alarm. Seneca valued these modest aids that sustain temperance. They are not great feats. They are small keys that open corridors of calm. Ask for clarity without demanding affection disguised as procedure. Instead of, "Why aren't you answering me?" try, "Can we continue tomorrow at 6? Instead of reading minds, ask for facts. Do not turn the conversation into an exam of affection. True affection is not measured with clocks, but with presence and deeds. If someone confuses your pause with lack of love, explain your standard without theater. Whoever prefers you anxious does not want connection, they want control. Do not sell your serenity to be online. If you work in environments that reward immediacy, propose order. Differentiate the urgent from the important. Open channels for the first and reasonable deadlines for the second. You will be more reliable if you respond in blocks of quality than if you fire nervous messages all day. Hurry is passion. Temperance does the work well. Do what lies before you, Marcus said, but do it with method. Your dignity does not grow by burning from notification to notification. It grows when you fulfill with sobriety what you promised. Turn waiting into a classroom. When the icon does not appear, instead of watching, read 5 pages, organize a drawer, complete a small task, step into the light. You re-establish hierarchies. Your life rises in rank. The signal returns to being just that, a signal. At first you will feel emptiness. In reality, it is space. In that space, concentration returns, the pleasure of one thing at a time, conversation without interruptions. Other people's attention ceases to be assisted breathing and returns to being a visit. Learn a return password. I respond when I decide. My value does not hang on a check. Repeat it quietly if the impulse drags you. You are not seeking coldness, you are seeking self-government. Patience is not resignation, it is power distributed over time. If someone plays with your need and responds at their convenience to keep you waiting, take note. You are not obliged to live in that fishbowl. There are cleaner tables. A good connection does not shrink you, it enlarges you. It is also worth looking at the reverse, when you delay to provoke unrest. That game degrades you both. A relationship is not a board of punishments. It is a space of clarity. Epictetus would ask for coherence. If you demand respect for your time, give respect for the time of others. Respond with honesty, set limits with sobriety, and if you need a long silence, say so. Clarity reduces the theater that feeds anxiety. A day trained in this signal feels different. You open the phone at your hours, not at your impulses. You write with precision, close the app, return to the world. In the afternoon, a notification arrives without fuss. At night, you decide not to look. Sleep does not depend on a flash. That light autonomy is the beginning of a great freedom. The best revenge is not to resemble the one who harmed you, Marcus wrote. We could add, the best victory is not to resemble your impulse. If all this seems difficult today, remember that a habit is not broken by shouting, it is undone by repetitions. Tomorrow you will fail, the day after you will succeed, and each time the distance between reaction and choice will be a little greater. Practice makes character. You do not beg when you hold your rulership. You do not supplicate when you remember who governs. Start with a moment, then with an hour. And in the end you will see that the icon is once again just an icon, and you are once again yourself. Second Stoic signal. You speak without saying anything just to fill the void. Speaking so that silence is not noticed is like eating out of nerves. It relieves for a moment and leaves you hungry again. You move your mouth so as not to feel invisible. You say words that do not represent you. You ask questions to avoid the gap that makes you uncomfortable. That gesture seems social, but often it is a tax on the soul. The void frightens you because it confronts you with what you are when no one applauds. The Stoics called that test temperance, sustaining the spirit without adornments. A silence at the right time is not coldness, it is respect for thought, for the other, and for yourself. Before you speak, ask yourself honestly, do I want to help or do I want to hide? If you want to help, listening may be enough. If you want to hide, any phrase will be a mask. Epictetus invited us to examine intention before the act. If the intention is fear, moderate the impulse. If the intention is service, clean the phrase of adornments. Speaking from fear leaves residues of discomfort. Speaking from service leaves room for the other to exist. The group pressures you. There are tables where belonging is purchased with quick opinions. You laugh when you don't want to, nod where you would hesitate, fill gaps so that no one perceives your insecurity. Seneca, who knew the temptation of theatre, warned that the crowd seduces toward what is easy. Do not owe yourself to their applause. Train your presence without noise. Be in a conversation without colonizing it. Ask with genuine curiosity instead of asserting from anxiety. That discipline restores dignity. You do not come to show off. You come to seek truth. Silence has a bad reputation because it once left us alone. That is why we sometimes avoid it as if it were an abyss. But not all silence is abandonment. There is the silence of listening, where the other orders their thought. There is the silence of respect, where you choose not to invade. There is the silence of maturation, where something is taking shape and is not yet ready to be said. Marcus Aurelius loved precision. To name with justice, one must wait. A premature word can distort an idea that required time. If the void makes you desperate, practice small exercises. Count 3 breaths before responding. Hold eye contact without finishing the other's sentence. Let the pause do its work without asking it for spectacle. If your hands reach for the phone, rest them on your legs and return attention to the body. You are not giving up. You are tuning the instrument. Music is not a race of notes. It needs silence so that each note has meaning. Speaking less does not mean being silent when you should denounce or correct. Temperance is not complicity with injustice. When truth is necessary and just, it is said calmly. The difference is not only in the content, but in the moment and the tone. Be brief when you speak, Marcus wrote, and let your words be necessary. Brevity is not haste. It is removing what is superfluous so that what matters arrives without noise. Observe how you fill the void within yourself. Sometimes you talk too much to drown out an emotion that demands another channel. You are sad and joke endlessly. You are tired and have an opinion about everything. You are insecure and offer advice as if you were an oracle. Seneca recommended taking charge of your own mood before instructing others. Perhaps you need water, sleep, a short walk, to write 2 lines to leave the maze. Well-chosen silence returns you to yourself, and from there what you say will carry weight and warmth. Do not forget that speaking without saying anything is a subtle form of begging for attention, as if you were saying, "Look at me, I'm still here, don't leave me alone." Do not blame yourself for wanting company. Blaming yourself entangles you more. Recognize the need without theater and attend to it in a way that does not diminish you. Call a friend and say it without disguises. "Today I could use some conversation." An honest request is better than 1,000 jokes that do not represent you. At work, practice meetings with explicit pauses, 10 minutes of brainstorming, 5 of silence to organize, then synthesis. You will see how words are refined and the quality of thought rises. The pause does not delay, it decants. Epictetus would celebrate that discipline that respects shared reason. And if someone fills in out of discomfort, model the standard yourself. Stay silent. Look at your notes. Breathe. Calm is contagious. At home, allow affection to exist without narrating everything. Accompany the one you love without saturating them with advice. There are hugs that heal more than a speech. There are soups that say more than a long talk. The word is a bridge, not a highway. If everything that happens must be commented on, life is impoverished into constant rumor. Intimacy is grateful for stillness. When you feel that talking for the sake of talking is winning, return to a simple image, a candle in a dark room. If you blow from nerves, you extinguish it. If you cover it with your hand for a moment, you protect it from the wind, and it burns more steadily again. Brief silence is that hand. It does not rob you of light, it preserves it. Afterwards, when you speak, your voice will not sound tense or supplicant. It will sound like someone who knows how to be. And if you make a mistake, repair without drama. Apologize for interrupting. Acknowledge that you spoke too much. Offer to summarize. Humility unties knots. You do not need to punish yourself to grow. You need to practice differently. With each attempt, the void will lose its threatening face and become an ally that reminds you to breathe. Then that gap will no longer be a gap. It will be space for the real to exist. In the digital world, the impulse to fill gaps multiplies. Each text box provokes you. Each notification invites you to be part of a current you do not know where it goes. Do not enter out of fear of being left out. Enter when you have something that serves. If in doubt, wait. Waiting filters. Marcus Aurelius preferred what remains to what merely shines. Most threads shine for a minute and are forgotten. Your serenity lasts longer than that spark. A practical tool for not speaking automatically is to ask better questions. What data is missing? What am I assuming without evidence? What would I say if I had to write it in one sentence? 3 questions that prune the verbiage and leave sound wood. When your idea withstands the test of the brief sentence, it is probably ready for the world. If you still need detours and ornaments, perhaps it needs to mature in silence. You can also agree on signals with those you work or live with. A gesture that indicates, "Give me a minute." A keyword that asks for a pause, a set time to think before deciding. Small pacts that reduce collective anxiety. It is not rigidity, it is respect for the mind. Epictetus would insist, train the habit, and the habit will support you when you are tired. Remember, finally, that the logos, your reason, loves clarity. If you speak without saying, the logos goes out. If you fall silent to think, it lights up. Feed that flame with good books, with deep conversations, with work done conscientiously. The voice that matters is not the one that takes up the most space, but the one that, when it appears, brings order. Make that voice your north. Speak less, say better. That could be your vow for today. It does not take away your presence. It gives you weight, and weight brings peace. Third Stoic signal: you do more than you want just to be seen. Doing extra just to be noticed is not virtue, it is hunger. And confused hunger is satisfied with applause that lasts seconds and leaves a hangover. When you over-deliver, you are not serving better. You are trying to buy approval. Epictetus would put it this way: act according to your nature, not according to the stage. If you take on tasks that are not yours, if you say yes where your reason calls for no, if you stay late so they notice your sacrifice, the bill arrives in the form of fatigue, resentment, and loss of clarity. Temperance restores measure, less theatre, more just work. Ask yourself calmly, what part of me wants applause? Perhaps the part that learned as a child that affection came when you overdid it. Honor that story and choose another rule. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the good of man lies in action in accord with reason. You do not need spectacle to do good. You need focus, rhythm, and limits. Where the limit is missing, the offering rots. Where rhythm turns into a race, quality falls. The automatic yes is a gentle trap. It makes you feel generous for a moment and leaves you indebted to yourself afterwards. Every time you agree out of fear of seeming unkind, you postpone real commitments, neglect your health, or treat those you love most with haste. Seneca warned that no one can give what they do not have. Whoever gives without measure ends up empty, and from emptiness, love is worse. Saying no is not lack of love, it is care for the whole. To break out of the performance circuit, use a brief method. 3 steps: clarify, calculate, communicate. Clarify exactly what is being asked and why. Calculate time, energy, and opportunity costs. Communicate a precise yes or a respectful no, or an alternative you can keep. If you cannot practice all 3, do not commit. Virtue does not promise what it cannot sustain. The body reveals when you are overdoing it for recognition. A tight jaw, short breath, contracted back, irritation after the generous gesture. Learn to read these signals as ethical stoplights. Relax the tongue, lower the shoulders, breathe deeply, walk for 10 minutes. A calm body corrects impulsive offers. Marcus Aurelius turned small practices into walls. Without those bricks, the city falls at the first assault of the ego. There is also excess disguised as humility. You do for others what belongs to them to avoid their discomfort. You think you are serving, but you are immobilizing. Lucid service uplifts the other. Overprotection diminishes them. Epictetus would ask what truly helps. Sometimes it is teaching the process, sometimes accompanying, sometimes stepping back. Do not steal another's learning in order to pose as savior. That role is sweet and addictive, but it keeps everyone from maturity. In teams, the hunger to be seen as indispensable creates bottlenecks. You centralize tasks, hoard decisions, answer everything, and you become a tired hero. The organization pays with slowness and dependency. You pay with health. The way out is not to stop caring, but to structure. Document, delegate, set schedules, share criteria. When the system improves, performance loses its purpose. What remains is the work, and if the work is good, it speaks for all. The digital stage can intensify the impulse. You post every achievement, do a little more to earn a square, compare yourself to those who display perfect days. Seneca would contrast appearance and essence. What is valuable is what remains when no one is watching. If sharing inspires you, share. If it enslaves you, rest. A brief retreat restores depth to what you do. When you say no, fear of rejection appears with dramatic voices. They'll be angry. They'll think I'm selfish. I'll lose my chance. Answer with facts. What has that impulsive yes cost you in the past? What relationships were strained by promising more than possible? What quality did you lose? Your history is a teacher, and if someone punishes you for setting boundaries, ask whether that bond is worth keeping. Reciprocity is not offended by clarity. There will be times when saying yes beyond comfort is virtue, caring for the sick, accompanying a grieving friend, holding up through a real crisis. The difference lies in the telos, the end you pursue. If the end is the good of the other or the whole, sacrificial offering is a free choice. If the end is to be seen, it is servitude. Examine the heart honestly. The same action can be noble or vain, depending on the motive. A useful resource to avoid overcommitting is the bridge phrase, "Let me think about it and get back to you." You gain time, measure costs, return with a sober answer. If they press for today, discover what they fear. If they insist on flattering you so you will yield, thank them and keep your boundary. Epictetus would remind you that freedom is saying no to what does not suit you, even if it enchants. Practice it in the small until it comes naturally in the large. Guard the home of affections. The one who lives overdoing to be seen outside comes home exhausted and without patience. Better to give less outward and give better inward. A simple dinner without a phone, a conversation without hurry, a walk together share more love than 100 noisy favors. Love does not need a stage, it needs presence. In the workplace, write your commitments on a visible board, not to show off, but to see if your yes fits. When you see the map, saying no becomes an act of responsibility. Your team will thank you. The opposite seems noble and ends in fires. Marcus would remind you that what is not in your hand is not your duty. Fulfill well what is. If you fall again into excess, do not mistreat yourself. Correct quickly, adjust expectations, apologize if you made impossible promises. Speed in repairing restores trust. Stubbornness in holding on to the hero role destroys it. A mature hero prefers truth to his statue. Imagine a week practicing this signal. You say no to 3 requests that take you away from your purpose. You say yes to one that lays a foundation. You shut down your computer at the promised time. You sleep a little more. You work with focus. Your mood changes its music. You no longer move to the rhythm of applause. You move to the cadence of reason. The energy you once spent showing off goes to what matters. That discrete shift transforms a life. It is worth remembering an image. A lamp covered by the hand. It does not shine outward, but the flame is protected from the wind and endures. Such is the limit when you say no to showing off. It does not extinguish you, it keeps you. Afterwards, when the time comes, the light will serve. Marcus Aurelius advised preferring to be rather than to seem. Practice that preference today, in the small, and see how the texture of your hours changes. I end with a modest promise. If you choose to act from reason and not from the hunger for attention, you may receive fewer applauses, but you will have more peace, better work, and cleaner relationships. And without realizing it, you will begin to be seen for what you truly are, not for the froth. That kind of recognition takes time, but when it arrives, it does not beg. It acknowledges. The rest is patience, method, and a heart in its place. Fourth Stoic signal: you explain your worth excessively in order to justify yourself. There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from the body, but from the soul. The exhaustion of constantly having to convince. You catch yourself giving prologues before every sentence, explaining your merits, narrating your hours, justifying each decision as if some invisible jury were waiting for verdicts at every step. You believe that if you don't explain, you disappear, that if you don't provide details, they will take away your seat, that if you don't embellish, no one will see your value. That effort drains you more than a long day, because one who lives justifying himself lives facing outward, and to live outward without an inner citadel is to walk without ground beneath you. Marcus Aurelius repeated to himself that man's good lies in doing what is his duty without selling it as spectacle. When you explain your worth excessively, you confuse the work with the noise that surrounds it, and noise, by definition, is never satisfied. The need to explain yourself comes from fear. Fear of not being liked, of not fitting in, of losing people's attention if you don't hold it with words. Public glory is a loan from rumor, warned Seneca. Today they grant it, tomorrow they collect it with interest. That is why dignity is not built with speeches, but with presence. The wise are content with being, not because they despise others, but because they have tested their measure in the laboratory of action. If you find yourself narrating too much, ask yourself honestly whether you are seeking to clarify or to secure. If to clarify, precision will suffice. If to secure, let go. Need seeks applause. Virtue seeks rigor. There are environments that stimulate this habit, organizations that reward rhetoric and not results, groups that measure belonging by glitter, relationships that test you with every gesture. Epictetus would insist, remember what depends on you. You do not control the palates of the audience or the urgencies of the room, but you do control your own standard. Decide that your words will serve clarity and justice, not anxiety. At first, this will cost you uncomfortable silences. Resist them. The silence that protects your composure is worth more than the courtly laugh that buys 5 minutes of approval. Approval, when it governs you, turns every conversation into an audit and every email into a plea. Do not confuse courtesy with justification. Courtesy opens doors. Justification subjects you. The first says with sobriety, "Thank you, here is my part." The second pleads, "Don't exclude me, I promise to do it all." When you notice your emails carrying endless preambles, cutting them short is an act of temperance. Say what is necessary, offer what you can fulfill, ask for what corresponds. Let your words be few and necessary, reads the Meditations. Few and necessary does not mean cold, it means sober, with the strength of one who trusts in his task. The sober word does not crawl, it walks with steady step and looks straight into the eyes. There is an intimate version of this signal, justifying your limits. You explain yourself 1,000 times for saying no, pile up reasons until you lose the thread, apologize for needing rest. The reasonable no does not need a stage set, because it protects what makes your yes possible. If you do not set limits, your life becomes an open hall where anyone can walk in and move the furniture. A limit is not a lack of love, it is the architecture of love. Mark the door with kindness and firmness. Whoever takes offense at a sober boundary is not seeking relationship, but dominance. And dominance should be met with clarity, not another essay of excuses. Before speaking, pause for a moment. Breathe. Name your purpose. Remember your measure. If you are presenting a project, First ask what problem needs to be solved and by what criteria the decision will be made. That precision avoids diffuse narratives that try to please everyone and serve no one. At home, if you need help, ask without adornment. It would help me if you did this today. Naked need dignifies. Drama, on the other hand, seeks to buy attention. You don't need it when you know your worth lies in what you do and who you are. Those who value you for spectacle today will forget you when fashion changes. Those who value you for your integrity will remain through grey days. There will be moments when you must truly explain, to teach, to document, to allow others to continue a task. Explain with rigor and simplicity. That kind of explanation does not sell your worth, it shares it. The boundary lies in the intention. If the focus is on ego, it slips toward exaggeration. If the focus is on the common good, your words become tools. Do your work and pass on, Marcus repeated. Add, explain, and let the results speak. Work that matters does not need a megaphone, it needs continuity. If you feel trapped in this signal, practice a deliberate pruning for a week. Remove 3 unnecessary phrases each day. In a message, reduce the preamble to 1 line. In a meeting, present data and a proposal, and keep the rest for questions. In a relationship, express a boundary without turning it into a novel. Observe what happens. You will discover that those who value substance appreciate clarity. Those who need spectacle will be frustrated. That's fine. You are not here to feed their theater. You are here to honor your task. The body betrays when you have crossed the line. The throat tightens, the face heats up, the hands gesticulate faster, the breath cuts short. Stop. Drink water. Plant your feet. Lower the volume of your voice. The body learns to distinguish between sharing and pleading. It is a subtle learning. At first, you will err. Correct without guilt. Apologize if you embellish too much. Return to the point. Close. True humility does not compete to shine. It corrects in time and continues working. Marcus Aurelius celebrated that possibility of beginning anew at every moment. Call it reset. Call it return to center. In the digital world, justification becomes exhibition. You post to prove that yes, you're there, yes, you do, yes, you matter. If you recognize yourself, take distance. One day without explaining anything about yourself is useful exercise, not to make yourself invisible, but to confirm that you do not evaporate when you are silent. The inner citadel, Marcus would say, does not need an audience. It is inhabited. It is cared for, and from there you serve others better. Some things deserve the light, others grow in shelter. Knowing the difference is domestic wisdom. Practice a language that honors your work without selling it. Change. I know I'm not the best, but to this is my proposal for these reasons within this time frame. Change. Sorry for the inconvenience. Forgive me for insisting to, when you can, I'd appreciate comments on these specific points. It is not arrogance, it is precision. Epictetus insisted on the economy of the logos. The word that serves shortens the road and saves where. Where before there were 10 frothy phrases, there will remain 2 of substance, and your spirit will breathe. If insecurity roars, do not cover it with monologues. Attend to it. Write down 3 proofs of your task well done. Talk to someone who can give you honest feedback. Review your real progress. Sober self-esteem is not inflated by applause. It is grounded in facts. Seneca trusted more in the testimony of conscience than in the voice of the crowd. When your conscience is at peace, the audience may delay. You go on. When it is not at peace, no applause will suffice. That is the thermometer. Sleep because of what you did, not because of what you said. Be patient with yourself. This habit often has decades of practice. It does not unravel overnight. Celebrate every small victory, that shorter email, that presentation without boasts, that no said without theater. Repetition consolidates character, and a character that rests in its work no longer needs to explain itself at every step. It simply acts, and its action leaves a trace. Do what lies before you with integrity, wrote Marcus. The rest, let it follow its course. At the end of the day, turn off the light and ask yourself, was I faithful to my task? Was I just in my words? Did I guard my boundary with respect? If the answer is yes, sleep. If the answer is no, do not flog yourself. Note a correction for tomorrow. Philosophy, Marcus repeated, is exercise. Your exercise is this luminous sobriety, to say what is necessary, to do what is promised, to keep silent what only seeks to buy a little attention. Little by little, the need to justify yourself will be left without a stage, and you will once again feel the gentle weight of being without explanation. Fifth Stoic signal: you display your life expecting approval. There comes a point where sharing ceases to be communication and becomes a request for permission to exist. You post a picture, recount an achievement, open up an intimacy, and end up in the hands of an invisible jury. If they applaud, you breathe. If they stay silent, you get uneasy. If they criticize, you fall apart. It's not that sharing is wrong, it's that when it becomes a necessity, the price is paid by your inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius spoke of that place as a fortress, a private chamber where nothing external comes in to command. Unmeasured display opens windows through which the weather of others slips in, and you end up wearing a coat or a t-shirt according to the emotional climate of the crowd. Ask yourself honestly what you expect when you post. If the answer is to celebrate, go ahead. If it's to verify, beware. Celebration is born full and is offered. Verification is born empty and begs. Seneca drew the difference at intention. Virtue does not boast, it acts. When you seek approval, you adjust your gestures to the anticipated reaction, and your life becomes a stage. At first it entertains, then it exhausts. Being a permanent actor in your own biography leaves you without a home because you never step off the stage. There you do not rest, you only rehearse. Intimacy is a temple, not a shop window. Not because intimacy is dark, but because it requires another climate to flourish. If you expose it to constant wind, it withers. Epictetus had no networks, but he understood hierarchies. What depends on you is your choice and your judgment. Do not hand that choice over to thumbs that are here today and gone tomorrow. If you decide to share, let it be from freedom, not from lack. Freedom feels like calm before and after. Lack feels like fever before and hangover after. There are days when loneliness presses and the impulse to display seems like a remedy. Do not judge yourself. Ask for real company. Call someone, write to a friend, go see a familiar face and name it without drama. Today, I need to talk. That request is more dignified than a string of stories that insinuate but do not resolve. Genuine affection is not measured in reactions. It is embodied in presence. And if no one is available now, let the wave pass. Walk, cook, read, do something to anchor yourself. The wave subsides. Do not sell your intimacy for a minute of noise. Comparison is another variant of this signal. You measure your days by the yardstick of edited lives. It seems to you that everyone shines more than you, that everyone arrives first, that everyone has a constant and benevolent audience. That pushes you to show more so you won't fall behind. Comparison is tyranny. Marcus Aurelius recommended looking at the nature of things. Many of those lights are mirrors. Your task is not to compete with images, but to do the good that is yours to do. An honest work, sustained over time, is worth more than a streak of applause. The streak passes, the craft remains. In practice, ask yourself before posting, if no one could react, would I still share this? If the answer is yes, you are likely offering something that already has meaning in itself, a joy, a discovery, a useful idea. If the answer is no, perhaps you are asking for a mirror to know you exist. Your existence needs no audit. Epictetus would say that true worth lies in your integrity, not in ovation. Ovation may accompany, it cannot direct. Also be mindful of what you don't show out of fear. The shame of common humanity, mistakes, fatigue, doubts, pushes you to construct a brilliant avatar, and that character demands constant upkeep. You then live to sustain the illusion. Seneca warned against life as theatre, not to please, but to live. Showing with measure, including imperfection, reconciles you with reality and lowers the pressure of the persona. It's not about exhibiting wounds by habit, but about allowing yourself to exist without makeup at times, to remember that skin breathes better without eternal paint. When the algorithm tempts you with its sugar, remember your economy of attention. Your energy is finite, the stream is not. Every piece you make for the marketplace has a cost. Time, focus, rest. Decide with Marcus. Prefer what lasts to what glitters. What lasts usually earns fewer applause at first, but it builds you. A notebook with ideas, a deep conversation with someone, a stretch of good work, a walk without photos, invisible bricks that sustain the house. If you fear losing opportunities by not displaying, adjust your method without betraying your center. Show your work precisely, not your life as a showcase. Clear portfolios, documents that explain the process, measurable results. Instead of endless reels of your face, deliver verifiable value. Sobriety does not frighten those who seek quality. It frightens those who seek noise. And noise is not your client. When you share, also seek to lift others up. Recommend a book, cite a source, recognize a merit. That practice defeats the logic of the attention market as war. Marcus Aurelius spoke of the hive. What does not serve the hive does not serve the bee. If your content serves the whole, it serves you, even if you don't see it immediately. Reciprocity takes time, but it arrives more serenely than the like. A separate warning deserves exhibitionism as reproach. Posting to provoke guilt, to show you can do it, to throw darts disguised as motivation. That strategy empties you. Epictetus would propose examining your intention and purifying it. If what you share seeks to wound or dominate, do not share. Justice guards tone and timing. Temperance guards measure. Choose to serve, not to conquer. Your body knows when you over-exhibit. Your heart races before posting. You refresh the feed like someone gasping for air. A strange sadness falls when the reaction does not come. Use those signals as guides. Plant your feet, loosen your tongue, lengthen your exhale, put the device away. Walk to the window, look at the sky without asking it for a show. That turn through the body recalibrates the mind. If you've already given too much of your intimacy to the public square, do not condemn yourself. You can close windows. Move conversations to private spaces. Delete what you would not want to define you. Let habits of automatic exposure die. Shame does not educate. Method does. Set no screen hours, digital silence days, projects that teach you to create without public validation. You will discover a new calm, that of producing without an audience. That calm restores depth to what you do. There is also the temptation to dress up drama, to receive compassion. You narrate your shadows live, expecting raised hands. Sometimes asking for help that way saves you. Other times it accustoms you to an identity that buys attention with pain. Seneca would encourage you to ask for real help without losing dignity. Naming your need to someone who can support it is worth more than 1,000 weepy posts. Your pain deserves respect, not ratings. At the end of the day, ask yourself, did this piece build something in me or in others? If the answer is no, reduce. If yes, stay the course. Marcus Aurelius said, the best defense is to be, and let your being spread. When your life regains density, the showcase will no longer attract you as salvation. You will still share, but no longer to beg for approval, but to offer fruit. And fruit, if good, finds those who need it, with or without applause. Imagine a week of measured sharing, 3 useful posts, 2 fertile silences, 1 honest conversation. Midweek, you notice your mood depends less on the thermometer of reactions and more on the pulse of your conscience. Much of the anxiety dissolves because you stopped selling your intimacy and began to tend your home. That serenity is not coldness. It is warmth that needs no spotlights. It is the light of your own room. When the temptation comes to display yourself just to feel seen, return to that room, light your lamp, and remember, your worth does not trade in the marketplace. It is cultivated where no one applauds and everyone gains, in the inner citadel. When you beg for attention, you hand your peace over to the haste of others. You live in expectation of a double check, a comment, an applause that lasts seconds and leaves a greater emptiness afterward. And if you do nothing, that habit becomes a way of life, a soul measured by others' eyes and forgetting its own worth. That is why subscribing is no small gesture. It is a declaration of dignity against that dependence that robs you of clarity. Here you will not find empty phrases or superficial consolations. Here you will receive each week Stoic reminders and tools to stop begging for glances and return to standing on your own strength. Not subscribing means staying trapped in that wheel of anxiety, answering without pause, displaying without measure, saying yes when your soul screams no. Subscribing means having a sober and steady space that reminds you your worth is not measured in notifications, but in the serenity of your character. If you recognized yourself in any of these signals, do not ignore it. The habit of begging for attention does not break with wishes, it breaks with decisions. This is one of them. Do it now. Subscribe. Because each episode can give you that exact word, that practice, that clarity that keeps you from once again giving away your peace. Your life was not made to beg for glances. It was made to shine from virtue and sobriety. Sixth Stoic signal. Your mind grows restless when you don't receive an immediate response. The mind that grows restless when it doesn't receive an immediate response has confused the clock with affection and the signal with meaning. A delay becomes a judgment, a double check becomes a theorem, a typing and becomes a lifeline. That haste is not love, it is passion, it is not care, it is habit. The Stoics wrote against rashness. Virtue does not run after every stimulus, it walks with a steady step. Epictetus taught to suspend assent in the face of impressions. Not every notification deserves an instant yes inside you. Between the stimulus and your interpretation lies a door. Opening it is reclaiming self-government. Let's describe the loop. Silence from the other arrives. Imagination enters. In seconds you construct a novel. They're ignoring me. They're angry. They don't love me anymore. I've lost my chance. I did something wrong. Nothing outside has changed. Everything inside is on fire. Seneca named it precisely. We are not tormented by reality, but by the opinion we have of it. Changing opinion is not self-deception. It is hygiene. The other's delay can have 1,000 innocent causes: fatigue, work, another grief, another focus. Your task is not to guess, but to hold your center and choose what you do with your time while you wait. To escape the snare, design a 3-step ritual: write with clarity, send with courtesy, release with resolve. Write what is necessary without adornments that look like pleading. Send and don't linger at the door. Release by setting in advance when you will check again. Marcus Aurelius asked himself to act as a rational being. Reason does not peck at glass every 2 minutes. It does what it must and returns when it must. When you check, do it once, not 20 times. Each extra check strengthens the habit that chains you. The body is an ally to lower the fever of immediacy. At the first impulse to check, observe your shoulders, your jaw, your breath. Drop your shoulders, loosen your tongue, lengthen your exhale. Walk 5 minutes, open a window, drink water. You're not fleeing, you're training. A calm body lends arguments to the mind. After 3 longer breaths, the story loses volume and reality re-enters through the door. Ask for clarity without turning procedure into a test of affection. Instead of, "Why aren't you answering me?" try, "Shall we continue tomorrow at 6? Instead of reading minds, ask about facts. Don't turn the conversation into a sentimental exam with a stopwatch. True affection is not measured in seconds, but in presence and deed. If someone interprets your pause as disdain, explain your standard. Whoever prefers you anxious is not seeking connection, they are seeking control. Do not sell your serenity for being online. In work environments that reward immediacy, establish healthy hierarchies. Differentiate urgent from important open channels for the former and reasonable deadlines for the latter. You'll be more reliable if you respond in quality blocks than if you fire off nervous messages all day. Haste is passion. Temperance does the job well. Do what lies before you, said Marcus, but do it with method. Reliability is born of that blend of clarity and rigor. Sustained vertigo only produces beautiful mistakes and ugly fatigue. Turn waiting into a classroom. When the icon doesn't appear, instead of watching, read 5 pages, tidy a drawer, advance a small task, step into the light. You reset hierarchies. Your life rises in rank. The signal becomes once again just a signal. At first you'll feel emptiness. In reality, it is space. In that space, concentration reappears, the joy of one thing at a time, conversation without interruptions. Another's attention ceases to be assisted breathing and returns to being a visit. When it comes, you are grateful. When it doesn't, your house still stands. If you discover that you grow restless not only with people but with systems, accept that there are structural delays. Don't quarrel with the administration of the world. Epictetus would call this amor fati in practical mode. What does not depend on you must not govern you. Set reminders, automate follow-ups, define thresholds for persistence and closure. Serenity is organized. It is not a capricious gift. In close relationships, agree on rhythms that don't dominate life, windows of response, keywords for real emergencies, explicit silences. Whoever loves you doesn't need to have you in the digital storefront. They know you are in the house. That knowledge rests when trust is alive, and trust is not born from answering in seconds, but from keeping promises and caring for the way you speak. Seneca distinguished between quickness and promptness. Promptness is virtue, compulsive speed, passion. Guard your inner language while waiting. Replace "they're ignoring me" with "I don't have data." It's all lost already with "I'll check at such time." "I don't matter" with "my worth doesn't depend on this response." It's not naive positivism, it's semantic hygiene. The mind obeys the verb that guides it. If the verb burns, the body runs. If the verb orders, the body cooperates. Marcus Aurelius practiced such re-education with his nightly notes, changing the story to change life. If someone plays with your nerves using delay as a tool of power, take note. 2 or 3 patterns are enough to see it's not accidental. Then the problem is not the silence, it's manipulation. Temperance doesn't ask you to endure mistreatment, it asks you to name it and step aside. The time you give to someone who uses you is time you take from someone who loves you. Recovering it is justice to yourself and to your community. A simple practice: set review times at 10, at 2, at 6, in between, real life. Put the phone face down, outside the room where you work or converse. If you're in a role that requires availability, create a second channel just for emergencies. The rest will flow at its pace. When you live like this for a week, your pulse will lower without losing effectiveness. You'll discover that dispersion is more costly than delay. Remember that not every silence demands an immediate response or eternal interpretation. Some silences are just the world's noise, others a gesture of respect. Give each its name. Not everything is about you. This humility is antidote to anxiety. Epictetus would urge you not to waste your spirit on what is not yours. Keep your fire for what depends on you. If you catch yourself checking for the 10th time, laugh a little at yourself and return to the method. Laughter without cruelty disarms the pride of the impulse. Then do a micro-task. Wash a dish, sweep a meter, write 3 lines. The body in action rescues the looping mind. When you finish, check once. Almost always you'll find nothing grave happened, and the next round of the habit will be a bit softer. At night, Write a brief log of delays. How many times did you wait? How many did you assume? How many were you wrong? Seeing it in writing sharpens the lens. Seneca said the day's accounts educate life. It's not neurotic bookkeeping, it's learning. You learn what triggers agitate you, what practices calm you, what words bring you back to center. Over time, waiting will cease to be a battlefield and become a corridor you cross without losing breath. Imagine an entire morning without measuring your worth by responses. You write, exercise, attend a conversation with someone present, and only then do you check. There are messages, you handle them. There are none, you carry on. Peace does not depend on a traffic light. It depends on your agreement with reason. The best defense is to be, Marcus noted, to be one who acts with method even though the world moves quickly. When life truly requires you to respond quickly, you will know. Genuine urgency will arise, and your trained calm will let you act better than the chronic, anxious one. Because temperance doesn't make you slow, it makes you master of your speeds. Some days call for a sprint and some for distance. Whoever has trained waiting chooses the rhythm without breaking. That is the prize, a freedom that doesn't vibrate with every notification, a presence that doesn't beg for signals to feel alive. If today it seems impossible, begin with a modest interval. Half an hour without checking, then an hour, then a block of deep work. In each interval, hold on to an anchor phrase. My worth does not hang on a check, it hangs on my integrity. With such anchors, the sea of the world keeps moving and your ship stops being a leaf. You move when you decide, not when the device summons you. And if you relapse, don't make drama. Correct. Drama is another way of centering on yourself. Correction returns you to the path. Life doesn't deny you affection for answering later. Don't deny life to your life by answering sooner. Be gentle with reality and firm with your discipline. Gentle to accept that sometimes they won't write back in time. Firm to not turn that into a prophecy against yourself. There, in that mix, is born a mind that no longer frets over immediacy, because it has discovered a deeper measure, the serene time of reason. Seventh Stoic signal. You cling to exhausted conversations out of fear of silence. There are dialogues that are no longer conversations, only inertia. They are sustained by habit, by fear of what will happen if you let the curtain fall, by that anxiety that mistakes pause for abandonment. You remain in the chat that no longer moves. You return messages that repeat the same thing with new words. You force a joke, an anecdote, any comment to avoid the pit. You don't listen to what the exchange is clearly telling you. There is no more fruit here. Clinging is, many times, a way of begging for presence. And that begging, if repeated, teaches you to settle for crumbs of attention when what your life needs is real bread. Marcus Aurelius asked himself not to prolong without necessity what nature asks to end. The nature of certain conversations is to finish. Forcing them to continue is to deny that simple law. The fear of silence often comes from old stories. If I stop talking, they'll forget me. If I don't reply, they'll get angry. If I don't keep this alive, it will sink. But no conversation sustains itself. Either it is sustained by a real good that renews it, or by your anxiety. Epictetus would invite you to distinguish what depends on you. It depends on you to be honest enough to name that you're tired, temperate enough to propose a pause, just enough not to turn the other into a machine that calms your loneliness. It does not depend on you that the other wants to continue, that they understand, that they have the same rhythm. It depends on you to close with respect, even if the gap scares you a little. The sign of exhaustion often shows up in the body before the mind. The shoulders tense, the neck seeks the ceiling, the eyes drift to the edge of the screen, the hands return again and again to the same phrase without saying anything. That is the moment to breathe and ask yourself, am I still here out of love or out of fear? If out of love, perhaps it's enough to name the fatigue and propose another pace. If out of fear, perhaps it's time to say goodbye with gratitude and yield the way to silence. Seneca advised saving words to save the soul. Speak what is necessary, the rest weighs you down, and that weight, if you drag it, will bend you inward. Holding on to dead conversations robs space from living ones. While you pour energy into what no longer walks, you decline opportunities to speak with those who can build with you. You miss the book you wanted to read, the walk that orders you, the idea that only appears when the noise lowers. Clinging carries a high opportunity cost you don't see through the fog of your unease. That is why the training is not only to say less, but to choose better. Choose the table where there is bread, the voice that helps you be. The moment when keeping silent is care. There is a sober way to close without hurting. Thank what was shared, name your limit with clarity, offer a channel and a time if appropriate, and withdraw without scenes. Thanks for the chat. I need a pause. Let's pick this up tomorrow. You don't need to turn every closure into a moral exam of the other. That theater is born of resentment, and resentment is cheap fuel. Temperance, on the other hand, cuts clean. Marcus Aurelius insisted on not adding exaggeration to the fact. The fact is that you are exhausted and that there is no further progress here. Period. Sometimes you stay because you mistake silence for abandonment, but the silence you choose does not abandon. It leaves space for something better to arrive. Silence teaches you to be with yourself without asking the other to flee from their own solitude in your company. If your bond only exists through jokes, comments, and filler, what remains when both fall silent? The truth remains. And truth, when it hurts, is a path. Either we work to have something real to say to each other, or we look at each other kindly and wish each other well from another distance. There is also attachment out of guilt. You believe that closing wounds, that pausing disappoints, that reducing frequency betrays. So you stay at the cost of your life. Epictetus would remind you that you cannot help anyone if you lose yourself in the process. If the conversation demands that you deny yourself, that you lie, that you fake interest, it is not conversation, it is servitude. And servitude, however soft it seems, corrodes dignity. Freedom begins when you dare to say, I have no word that serves right now. That truth opens more doors than 100 forced replies. In practice, rehearse gentle rules. Don't reply immediately when there is no topic. Propose set times to talk. Reserve windows of silence to read, think, rest. Whoever respects your silence deserves your voice. Whoever invades it as a right deserves your limit. Seneca, who knew the weariness of court, protected himself with schedules and retreat, not from misanthropy, but from love of judgment. Judgment dries up if it doesn't drink stillness. If the chatter drags on because of unresolved conflict, name the core precisely. We're circling. I suggest we write it down and revisit tomorrow. I need to listen without interruptions, then I'll respond. This issue deserves face-to-face. The impulse to resolve everything in an endless thread is anxiety with the mask of responsibility. Real responsibility applies method, and method often begins with a pause. Learn to see when the other is already gone. Sometimes you sustain a monologue because you don't want to admit that on the other side there is distance. Don't humiliate yourself by demanding attention with fireworks. The best revenge is not to resemble, Marcus wrote. Don't resemble the impulse that begs. Withdraw with dignity. Life has other places where your word will find the right echo. Don't stand at a closed door when there are open windows to the sun. Finally, forgive yourself when you cling again. Habit doesn't release without memories. You'll leave a conversation thinking you should have cut it sooner. That's fine. Note it down. Next time you'll do it 5 minutes earlier. Freedom is measured in those minutes regained. In the gap at first, it will hurt. Soon it becomes space. In that space, your life breathes. And when your life breathes, it stops begging and begins proposing again. Then, silence stops looking like a precipice and becomes solid ground. There appears a discreet joy. You don't need to hold on to exist. You can choose to stay or go, to speak or withhold, without fear of vanishing. And when you do speak again, your words won't ask, won't demand, won't bribe. They will serve. There is a concrete practice that brings depth back. Let the conversation rest as one lets dough rest. Write the essential, close the device, walk 10 minutes, return with another perspective. You will see how urgency changes shape and the idea refines. Marcus Aurelius recommended looking from above to see small things in their small measure. When you step back, this matter loses the tyranny you gave it. And when it loses that tyranny, you'll discover whether you truly wish to continue or if you were only fighting your fear. Remember lastly that silence is not a hostile void. It is an instrument. The musician does not fear the pause because he knows the melody breathes in it. So do you. Do not flee from that breath. Epictetus would say that freedom begins in the mouth. Sometimes it begins in what you choose not to say. If today you choose to be silent in time, you don't vanish. You become clear. Tomorrow, when the conversation resumes, your presence will carry another weight, because you will have proved that your worth does not hang on sustaining an exhausted thread, but on sustaining yourself. Eighth Stoic signal: you need to eclipse others to avoid feeling invisible. Comparison is a silent tyranny. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It tells you that if you don't shine, you disappear. That if someone else shares something, you must share something bigger. That if another receives attention, you should steal a bit of that spotlight with a clever joke, a better fact, a louder achievement. Without realizing it, you enter a competition where no one wins. The applause is brief, the hangover long. Epictetus would be blunt. What does not depend on you is not part of your good. The attention others give is not yours. Your good lies in acting with integrity. To want to eclipse is to forget that axis. The impulse to eclipse usually arises from an old wound. You learned that you were looked at when you stood out most, not when you simply were. That learning turned you into a hunter of spotlights. But spotlights heat and do not feed. Marcus Aurelius chose another light, the one that comes from agreement with rational nature. In that light, you can allow others to shine without feeling they steal your place. Virtue is not measured in watts, it is measured in fruits. What nourishes remains, what dazzles passes. And by chasing flashes, you end up forgetting the work that quietly builds you within. Eclipsing impoverishes listening. When you prepare your display, you no longer hear. You calculate. Your intervention loses humanity because its aim is not to serve, but to win. Seneca preferred weight over showiness. What has weight remains. What is showy passes. Practice the gesture opposite to eclipsing. Ask questions that enlarge the other. Highlight another's merit. Acknowledge an idea that wasn't yours. At first your ego resists. Later it discovers a new rest. Life without a ring is wider. Comparison not only wounds relationships, it wounds your work. When everything is oriented toward outdoing, you start producing for the crowd and not for the good. You shorten processes, exaggerate results, turn learning into a showcase. That leaves you far from excellence. Excellence does not compete, it refines. To refine you needs silence, patience, method, and humility. None of those ingredients get along with the urge to eclipse. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, wrote to himself as a learner. His greatness was that of one corrected by reality and reason. If invisibility hurts you, address it without theatrics. Say, "I'd like to share something too," when the time is right. Or ask for your own space to show your work without needing to overshadow anyone else's. If they don't give it, check if you are in the right place. Sometimes the desire to eclipse arises in environments that reward show and punish substance. Change the stage or change the measure you use. Epictetus would remind you that you can choose your standard. Measure your day by fidelity to your purpose, not by the eyes you gathered. In community, declare a clear standard to celebrate without competing, not naivety, hygiene. Establish rituals of recognition where each has a turn, document contributions, distribute credit with justice. Marcus Aurelius imagined the beehive. The bee doesn't steal flowers from the other, it collaborates. That image is medicine against the scarcity mindset that makes you think good is a tiny cake. When the team learns to add lights instead of extinguish them, work grows in volume and serenity. Beware of eclipsing disguised as modesty. You say, "Mine is little," but immediately insert your story with precise shine. That double move leaves a bitter taste in the group. True modesty does not deny merit, it places it. "I'm glad for what you did. Here's what I contributed. Together, it works better." Simplicity, not forced invisibility. Clarity, not trumpet. There is also eclipsing from fear of losing love. In couples, when the other is seen, your anxiety demands stage positions. What about me? If you recognize yourself, breathe. Love is not intermittent spotlight, it is daily work. Sustaining another's brightness when it is your turn to be in shadow is one of the noblest practices of character. Seneca would say, "What lifts the whole lifts you." Accompanying without competing turns the relationship into a workshop, not a duel. Train microactions, yield the floor, ask first, cite another's source, recommend someone else for an opportunity. That training is ant-like, invisible and constant. The ant builds hills. When later it is your turn to speak, your voice will carry new prestige, that of someone who doesn't need to push to exist. That prestige lasts longer than the momentary glare of eclipsing. On social media, eclipsing is tempting and chronic. The brilliant interruption is rewarded, the reply that corners, the sharp comment that steals the scene. If your spirit craves that sugar, rest. Replace the quip with a thread that builds, irony with a source, protagonism with recognition. Not out of moralizing, out of strategy for peace. Your energy is finite, the algorithm infinite. Choose where to spend it. Sobriety is the only diet the algorithm cannot devour. Recovering dignity before comparison requires an inner geography. Ask yourself each morning, what work is mine today that does not depend on applause? Write 3 lines of purpose, work a stretch without announcements, look at the result and correct. Epictetus insisted on exercises. Without practice there is no progress. Work, review, improve, share with measure. Measure is the garment of greatness, protection from the wind. If envy bites you, don't disguise it, name it and give it work. Turn that energy into study, consistency, raising your own standard. The opposite, the cutting remark, the rumor, the minimizing gesture, gives you a small victory and robs you of character. Seneca called envy a disease of the eyes. Instead of looking at your path, you stare at others until you lose sight. Turn your gaze back to your table. Ask, what can I do well today, even if no one applauds? That question gives you back command. The body also betrays the desire to eclipse. You speed up when another speaks. You interrupt without noticing. You feel your throat pulse when another's news arrives. Here it helps to practice the physical. Loosen the mouth, drop the shoulders, plant your feet fully, lengthen the exhale. That bodily modulation halts the rush toward center stage. From that stillness, you can choose a nobler gesture. Wait your turn to speak. Take notes. Create space. Leadership is recognized like this, in those who make room, not in those who seize it. There are competitive environments where keeping quiet to let others shine is read as weakness. Don't be fooled. Temperance is not cowardice, it is self-mastery. You can be firm and generous at once, uphold your standard, state your contribution, and at the same time celebrate another's success without irony. Marcus Aurelius trained indifference to fame, not from disdain for the world, but to protect his rectitude. You too benefit from that selective indifference. Don't hate attention, order it. A useful practice is light accounting. At day's end, write 3 lights you lit without extinguishing any other. a help offered, a correction made with respect, a recognition given on time. That list retrains your pleasure. You learn to enjoy adding, not subtracting. The taste for adding is an antidote to the urge to eclipse. At work, avoid becoming a bottleneck by wanting to pass through every camera. Document processes, share knowledge, teach your method. If everything depends on you to shine, everything halts when you tire. A healthy system distributes light and responsibility. Epictetus would applaud such distribution. It favors the freedom of all, including yours. If at some point you must take center stage, accept it without guilt, but without theatrics. Speak clearly, briefly, and return to the work. Attention that comes as a consequence of the work doesn't intoxicate. Attention you chase as an end poisons you. Remember, fame is wind, wrote Seneca. Let it pass without changing your step. Your step is that of one who measures themselves by fidelity, not by photos. Imagine a week without eclipses. You fully listen to someone sharing their achievement. You ask a question that expands it. You later share your progress precisely and without adornment. At home, you celebrate good news without stacking yours on top. On social media, you post content that teaches instead of shouting. At the close, you're surprised by a rare calm. You haven't vanished. You are still here, more whole. The visibility that matters, the one from your own conscience, remains intact. Lastly, keep an image for when comparison returns. The night sky. Thousands of points of light coexist without pushing each other. No eclipse lasts forever. No star is the sun in all things. You don't need to erase anyone to exist. When the impulse demands the spotlight at any cost, look up, breathe, and remember, Stoic greatness is not to burn, but to burn with measure. Burn where you do good. And if someone shines beside you, rejoice. Shared light reveals the path better. Ninth Stoic signal. You say yes even though your soul screams no. There are no's that save your entire life, no's that protect your health, your time, your family, your craft, no's that guard your inner citadel from the polite plunder of others' urgencies. But saying them is hard because the world learns quickly how to ask, and you learn too early how to please. So you say yes when you know you shouldn't, with a smile that hurts your jaw and a schedule that creaks. That yes, comfortable in the moment, becomes a bigger no later. To your rest, to your real commitments, to your own word. Seneca was clear. No one can give what they don't have. If you give yourself away beyond your measure, you are left with nothing of value. If you refuse in time, you keep what is necessary to love better. The first step is to listen to the body. The soul screams no through physical signals, a tight stomach, a back on alert, short breath, a thought repeating like a watermark. Before answering, breathe. Epictetus advised suspending assent. That second between impulse and response is pure freedom. In that second you can ask yourself, does this serve my purpose? How much will it cost me? What will I set aside if I say yes? Can I fulfill this honorably? If you don't have the answer, don't promise. Ask for time. It's not evasion, it's temperance. The world doesn't fall apart if you say, let me think about it. Whoever gets angry at your pause didn't want your well-being, they wanted your compliance. A healthy yes is born from reason, not fear. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we must act in accordance with who we are. If your measure today is smaller, honor that truth. Greatness is not in overreaching to impress. It is in sustaining what is just, many times. Simple constancy builds more than sporadic heroics. And if someone accuses you of selfishness for respecting your measure, look at their fruits. Those who demand without seeing your limits don't want your good. They want your availability. Sometimes you say yes out of guilt. You failed before, and now you offer more than you can to compensate. That compensation is dangerous. It disguises the lesson you need. Repair what you broke with precision and without theater. Apologize if needed. Deliver what is possible and return to the standard. The forgiveness you give yourself is not license for disorder. It is fuel for sober correction. Poorly managed emotional debt turns you into an ATM for favors, and the ATM always opens when someone pushes hard enough. Close that counter. Serve with discernment, not with guilt. There are no's that hurt because they mean breaking old patterns, saying no to the joke that degrades you, to the meeting that uses you, to the relationship that only calls when there's a fire to put out. That no may cost you shallow belonging. In return, it gives you belonging to yourself. Epictetus would say, freedom begins when you stop buying peace at the expense of your judgment. Your judgment is not for sale. It is your home. Locking its door doesn't isolate you. It allows you to invite with confidence. To train, create bridge phrases to hold you when your pulse rises. I can't now. I can at this time with these limits. It's not possible. I recommend this person. Thanks for thinking of me. Today, I'm prioritizing this instead. They're not walls, they're frames. A cared-for limit allows what you do, accept to be done with quality. Without frames, everything falls from your hands, guilt makes you more compliant, and the wheel keeps turning. The practice of frames is humble and powerful at once. It gives you back ownership of your schedule and your spirit. If you fear seeming selfish, review your fruits. Does your constant yes make you kinder or resentful? Does it bring you closer or drive you from those you say you love? Does it improve or worsen your work? Virtue is known by its fruits. If your yes to everything bears bitter fruit, it isn't virtue, it's addiction to applause or fear of criticism. Seneca preferred the short sharpness of a limit to the long sorrow of chaos. The brief discomfort of an honest no is worth more than the prolonged drain of a yes that betrays you. At work, document your real capacity. When you see your week written down, your yes stops being an emotional act and becomes an informed decision. Share that map with whoever asks. Show availability and limits. Transparency dismantles unrealistic expectations. Whoever insists you stretch your day like rubber doesn't want collaboration. They want you to absorb their disorder. You are not a sponge. You are a person with rhythm. Marcus Aurelius would remind you to carry your duties like a sober soldier, without complaint, without vanity, with order. There are requests that deserve your sacrifice. Caring for someone fragile, responding to a real emergency, accompanying someone in grief. But even in those cases, temperance distributes the effort, shifts, support, rest, clarity. You are not an immortal hero. You are a creature with a body. If you collapse, you help no one. Sacrifice that destroys the instrument becomes useless. To honor the body is to honor your service. In the intimate realm, no protects the ground where your true yes grows. When you learn to refuse what drains you, you can say yes joyfully to what makes you whole. That is the criterion. No clears the way for a good yes. If you only refuse without affirming, you become rigid. If you only affirm without refusing, you become weak. Virtue is the architecture of both. Epictetus would put it simply, say yes to what depends on you and is good. Say no to what doesn't depend on you and drags you down. And if you err and say yes where you should have refused, repair quickly. Don't uphold the impossible out of pride. Communicate, renegotiate, assume your part, learn. Quick correction preserves bonds. Obstinacy breaks them. You're not on trial, you're in a workshop. A workshop allows mistakes and demands amendment. That combination without drama makes you trustworthy. To strengthen your no, it's useful to inventory past losses. Remember a time you said yes and it cost you dearly: sleep, money, respect, health. Write down what signals you ignored, what phrase would have helped then, what boundary you were called to set. Those reminders are not whips, they're guardrails. Next time your pulse rises, you'll have them ready to decide with calm. It's also worth reviewing your economy of energy. Not all yeses cost the same. There are small yeses that fit, and big yeses that require rearranging the map. If you accept a big yes, clear space with firm no's around it. A schedule without air suffocates virtue. Air allows quality. Marcus Aurelius managed battles and studies. You manage tasks and rest. Doing it with method is philosophy applied. The fear of disappointing pushes you to promise more than you can, but a broken promise disappoints more than a timely limit. With those who love you, an honest no strengthens trust. With those who use you, it unmasks them. Seneca observed that flattery buys cheap affections and sells freedom at the highest price. Don't buy that deal. Bet on clarity, even if it is less celebrated at first. In community, your no protects the whole. If you accept everything, you weaken the system. Dependencies, bottlenecks, resentful silences. When each one names their measure, the team finds rhythm, the load is distributed, and the work gains health. Write down your capacity, publish your schedule, propose channels and response times. Clarity is not coldness, it is love for the common work. If the request touches your vanity, flattering you so you'll yield, recognize the bait. Flattery is sweet, it devours. Breathe, repeat your standard, decide with reason. Epictetus taught to consider the price of each thing. What you buy with your hasty yes is often paid for with your peace. Is that coin worth it? Imagine a week with 3 precise numbers and 3 full yeses. You say no to a commitment that doesn't fit. No to a vampiric conversation. No to a favor that would use you. You say yes to a dinner without a phone. Yes to an hour of deep work. Yes to a walk that restores your judgment. That week feels different. You discover it's not true that you're forgotten if you set limits. You are respected. And if someone is offended, they weren't your community, they were your checkpoint. Be grateful for the clarity and move on. One final image, a door with firm hinges. No is the hinge that lets yes open without tearing off. Without hinges, the door falls at the first push. With hinges, it opens and closes in its time, and the house stays standing. Guard your hinges. Marcus Aurelius, with wars and plagues, held his doors with simple habits, writing, breathing, ordering, serving. You can hold yours with the same humble steadiness. Thus, each just no prepares the ground for a noble yes. And when the yes comes, it will be whole, without resentment, without theatre, without hidden fatigue. It will be a promise that honors your word and gladdens your life. 10th Stoic signal, you dress up drama to receive compassion. There is a way of asking for attention that looks like humility, but is theatre, dressing pain with lights to buy stares. I am not speaking of legitimate tears or brave confession, but of that staging that amplifies what happens to you to guarantee compassion. If every story of yours seeks juries, if you choose words designed to trigger alarm and applause, if you exaggerate falls so no one demands of you, perhaps you are not asking for help, you are negotiating for attention. Seneca would say it with severity. Complaint without purpose makes us weaker. The remedy is discipline that straightens. Epictetus would go to the core. Examine intention, because those who dramatize often don't want healing, they want an audience. And Marcus Aurelius, with his sober prose, would remind you that pain deserves respect, but respect begins by naming it without adornment. Drama as currency has hidden costs. It makes you less free because you depend on climax. It makes you less trustworthy because you change tone depending on the room. And it deteriorates bonds. It makes them hostages of your state. Epictetus asked us to look at the end of each act. Do you seek the good, or do you seek the gaze? When the gaze is the end, the good is lost along the way. Marcus Aurelius preferred to call it by its name, passion. Passion unchecked does not think, it sweeps away. Temperance, on the other hand, asks what is fitting, when, how, and for whom. If every conversation ends in your catharsis, there is no room for the other's reality. If every project revolves around your bad moment, the craft degrades. Over time, even you distrust yourself. You no longer know where sorrow ends and the script begins. Look at the mechanisms of drama. 1. Enlarging what you feel so the other doesn't doubt. 2. Speaking in public what should be addressed in private. 3. Chaining laments to avoid taking responsibility for the solution. 4. Accusing lack of love when you are asked for method. Beneath it all, a fragile certainty. If I don't exaggerate, I'll be left alone. The way out is not to become stone. It is to choose paths that help you without belittling you. To ask for real help from those who can actually help, with precise words and a possible plan. The other choice is turning others into spectators and yourself into a character, condemned to repeat the role even when you no longer need it. A useful discipline: differentiate pain from theatre. Pain: concrete names, real effects, clear request. Theatre: dazzling vagueness, guilt triggers, open endings that call for the next show. When in doubt, write the minimum and send it to the right person, not to the crowd. Seneca advised saving words to save the soul. Saving words does not mean denying what happens to you. It means respecting it. When you reduce noise, what you truly need appears. A bed, an appointment, advice, enough silence to steady your spirit. That silence is fertile. It allows you to think more justly about yourself and about others. Permanent drama also robs you of competence. At work, it invalidates your arguments. At home, it tires the ear. With yourself, it convinces you that you are nothing but your wound. Marcus Aurelius repeated to contemplate things as they are. When you give sober names, you can act. When you narrate grandly, you remain on stage. Prolonged stage time exhausts and makes you distrust even your own pain. Because the soul knows when you exaggerate and through repetition stops believing. That unbelief is poison. If you don't believe yourself, no one can hold you up for long without burning out. Don't confuse dignity with coldness. Dignity is asking upright, not from the floor. You can cry with justice and still take care with your words. You can show fragility without turning it into identity. Epictetus taught with exercises, what depends on you is how you present yourself before what hurts. Presenting yourself with sobriety does not erase pain, it orders it. It brings allies, not spectators. And allies, unlike the audience, stay when the lights go down. If you have already fallen into the habit of dressing drama, do not condemn yourself. Unlearning is also practice. Try a week without open emotional posts. Call 2 trustworthy people if you need support. Schedule a serious conversation. Write on paper what you feel. Walk without headphones. Pray if you pray. Then make a list of small actions and carry out one each day. Seneca proposed easy things to straighten the spirit: tidy the table, clean a shelf, prepare simple food, go to bed on time. Small, silent victories restore confidence to the moral muscle. Take care also with your language. Change "nobody understands me" to "I find it hard to explain." Change "they always let me down" to "I need to choose better." Change "everything is a tragedy" to "today was a hard day." It is not makeup, it is precision. Hyperbolic language seems to release but binds. Exact language seems austere but opens doors. Whoever receives your request appreciates knowing what to do. And you, speaking with measure, remember you are more than your wound. You are an agent capable of moving the world an inch today. There are pains that do require a stage, denouncing abuse, calling for solidarity, demanding justice. In those cases, a strong voice is service. The difference again lies in the end. If the end is the good, you will accept method, numbers, timing. You will make room for other voices. You will be part of a solution bigger than you. If the end is only the gaze, any proposal will feel like attack. Epictetus would call this slavery to impression. To break it requires returning to your telos, to act with virtue, not to act for applause. Examine what drama gives you and what it takes away. It gives you quick company, yes. It takes away respect, rest, focus, credibility, freedom. It leaves you at the mercy of the next chapter. Don't make your life an endless series. Make your life a craft. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Work, do not complain. It is not contempt for pain. It is care of the spirit so that pain does not rob the work. When the work grows, the compassion that arrives changes color. It is no longer a handout of eyes, but solidarity among peers. If someone close feeds your drama because that way they control you, take it seriously. Sweet benefits are chains. Put distance, seek professional help, change the table if needed. True compassion does not infantilize you, it strengthens you. The inner citadel that the Stoics defended is not arrogance. It is the home from which you can open the door to those who knock with respect and close it to the spectacle that invades all. I end with an image. Imagine an oil lamp. If you expose it to the wind so that everyone sees it lit, the wind extinguishes it. If you protect it with glass, it shines longer and for more people. Sobriety is that glass. It does not make you dark, it makes you useful. Dress even your shadows with measure. When you ask for attention, let it be to build, not to sell. Then your pain will find hands, your voice will find a place, and your life will stop asking permission to exist and begin to exist with weight. And if one day you slip and return to theatre, return to the practice, correct, repair, learn, and continue. Dignity grows with each rehearsal. The dignity of your attention. The dignity of your attention is not a slogan, it is a daily practice. Your life becomes thin when you spend it begging for glances, and it regains depth when you choose what to give your presence to. You have gone through 10 signals as if lighting lamps in a dark house. Perhaps you have seen yourself in the icon that decides your mood, in the chatter that fills voids, in the excess that seeks applause, in the justification that begs for permission, in the showcase that turns you into merchandise, in the urgency that commands, in the ring of comparison, in the endless talk, in the yes that betrays you, and in the dress of drama that asks for compassion. Not to accuse you, but to free you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best defense is to be. To be today is to take back the helm of your attention and govern your responses with sobriety. You do not need noise to exist. You need roots. Perhaps you wonder where to start tomorrow. Start with a small, exact gesture. Decide on a threshold of silence upon waking before touching the screen. Write 3 lines that state who you want to be today. Review your schedule and protect a block where no one rents your mood. Epictetus asked to distinguish what depends on you. This small ritual depends on you. If you fail, retry without beating yourself up. Temperance is not an impassive statue. It is a muscle strengthened by repetition. Today you will say no where before you yielded. Today you will stay silent where before you spoke out of fear. Today you will ask for real help instead of buying attention with pain. Tomorrow there will be another opportunity. Seneca said we do not have little time, we have much that we waste. Recover 1 hour of your day as one recovers a plot of fertile land. Sometimes you will fear becoming cold if you stop begging. Do not fear, it is not distance, it is measure. Measure does not cool love, it makes it livable. The child you were perhaps learned to win affection with extra, with noise, with sacrifice. Now you can teach him another choreography, to be seen for the quality of your presence, not for the volume of your noise. When you accompany a friend, choose the listening that sustains instead of the speech that flatters you. When you negotiate, use the pause that protects truth instead of the haste that enslaves you. When the networks tempt you, ask what remains of you after the scroll. If it is fatigue and emptiness, let go. If it is clarity and service, continue. That is the criterion. What makes you a better human being is good. What turns you into an actor of your nerves, let it pass. I propose something simple and brave for the week that begins. Live one day with the golden rule of Marcus, Seneca, and Epictetus. First, to see things as they are, without inflating or shrinking them. Second, to do what corresponds to the role that today is yours. Third, to guard your judgment as a sacred good. If you do this, you will notice discrete fruits, shorter and deeper conversations, fewer promises that later weigh, more work done and less exposure, more real rest and less fatigue from play acting. Perhaps no one applauds it in public, but your conscience will celebrate it in silence, and that intimate applause is the one that lasts longest. You are not alone in this training. Each episode is a shelter for your spirit and a workshop for your character. Here you will not find hollow slogans or magic formulas, but reminders and small exercises that can be practiced even on difficult days. Some will arrive like a pat on the shoulder, others like a brake that avoids the fall, others like a mirror that asks you to adjust your gesture. If you feel these ideas help you live with less noise and more substance, I invite you to stay close. Subscribing is ensuring that each week discipline comes back to knock at your door with a lamp lit. It is not smoke for sale. It is a commitment to yourself to remember that your attention matters and you can govern it with gentleness and firmness. Perhaps the word subscribe seems technical. Think of it as a silent promise. You promise to give yourself the gift of regular guidance. You promise not to walk alone against noisy inertia. You promise to choose method instead of theatre. I, for my part, promise to care for the tone, not to saturate you with calls to action, not to confuse company with clamour, not to ask you for spectacle. I want you, when listening to this space, to feel the sober company of a friendship that does not beg for your attention, it honours it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself to remember what he already knew. This podcast wants to be that table where you return to yourself. If you decide to join, you will receive clear practices to strengthen your inner citadel. Phrases for limits, breaths to calm the pulse, schemes to decide with justice, questions to deactivate the pride that eclipses and the fear that begs. And if you choose not to join, I still want you to take the method. Less drama, more exactness, less haste, more measure, less showcase, more root. Take with you an image for when anxiety returns, a lighthouse in the midst of waves. It does not shout or chase ships, it simply stands, firm, and by standing, guides. Your attention can be that lighthouse. Each no that frames, each silence that orders, each brief and just word are stones that hold it. The waves will continue. Your lighthouse will learn to withstand them without breaking. As Seneca wrote, favorable wind serves the one who knows to what port he sails. The port here is life with weight, not with noise. Before closing, I want to invite you to a concrete and small act. If this episode touched a nerve, write right now one line of purpose for tomorrow, one single line, sober and operative. Leave it visible. Tomorrow, before opening the door to the world, read it softly. That line is your pact with temperance. If you also want me to remind you to return to this training each week, subscribe right now and let's make that reminder a shared habit. Not to collect content, but to cultivate character. Serenity is not a state that arrives by luck. It is a craft that is learned. And dignity, when it stops asking permission to exist, begins to write the biography you deserve to read. Thank you for being here and for listening calmly. If you decide to stay, welcome to a community that does not compete for spotlight, but for virtue. If you decide to leave, may these words accompany you as a modest compass when your hand wants to return to the blue icon. Return to this table when you need. Here you will find the same standard: clarity, method, respect, and a gentle reminder, inherited from the old masters. Your attention is yours. Where you place it, there your life grows. Imagine within a month listening to this episode again and noticing that you no longer check compulsively, that your words carry more weight and your silences care better. There will be no fireworks, but days with form. Those days are our goal. If the path serves you, let us hold it together. Subscribe to receive each week a brief practice, a serene reflection, and a concrete invitation to choose with virtue. Not to convince you, but to accompany you to be who you already can be. Because in the end, it is not about having more noise in your life, but about gaining more calm, more clarity, and more inner freedom. That is the true triumph. Living in a way that does not depend on the borrowed attention of others, but on the solidity that arises from yourself. Here begins that practice. And here, if you decide to stay, you will always have a reminder that your value is not begged for. it is lived. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be set as the standard of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. We will see each other in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your Stoic practice with new recommended podcast sessions. Follow us so you don't miss any reflection that could help you at just the moment when everything feels overwhelming. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish episodes designed to accompany you when life feels heavy, when it's hard to stay calm, when you need a word to remind you who you are. Not following us is to risk missing exactly that lesson that could bring back the peace you have been seeking. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.